Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Whole Wellness Mama Summit, where we are unlocking the healthiest, less stressed mom in you using strategies from various wellness experts. I'm your host, Amy Nesbitt, and I am thrilled to be speaking with Dr. Deanna Minich today about the amazing benefits of eating the rainbow as a family. She's a nutrition scientist, educator, author with over 20 years of experience in academia and in the natural product industries, currently serving as the Chief Science Officer at Symphony Natural Health. She has been active as a functional medicine clinician in clinical trials, as well as in her own practice, Food and Spirit. She's the author of 6 consumer books on wellness topics, 4 book chapters, over 50 scientific publications, and through her talks, workshops, groups, and in-person retreats, she helped people transform their lives practically and artfully through nutrition and lifestyle. I know you're all in for a treat today. Welcome, Dr. Deanna.
Oh, thank you, Amy. Good to be here with you. And I'm so excited to get the rainbow message out there to families.
Absolutely. Some people are meeting you for the first time. I'd love for you to share your quick story of how you came to where you are now.
It's because of my mom.
I love that.
Basically, like all of the moms out there listening, to think that you can be a source of lifelong inspiration for your kids just based on food. That's what happened with me and my mom. So my mom was a health nut when it wasn't really cool to be into eating and, we couldn't have white bread. And so my mom had reconfigured my upbringing. So that she kind of went through this transformation when I was about 8 or 9 years old. She was pregnant with my brother at the time. And she just kind of went through this whole life revelation of like, hey, we need to eat differently. It's important. So I would say that initially I resisted. And then eventually when I went into study at the college level, I realized that I love science so much. Like I just love biology. I love to understand just things about my body, and things were already happening with my body. I was noticing like I had a lot of gut issues. I had some reproductive issues. And so I was just kind of curious just for my own personal healing. So then I went on to study nutrition in graduate school, ultimately. So thanks to mom for that. She's still alive and well, and we still have almost daily conversations about health and well-being. So it's all because of my mom.
Oh, I love that because my mom is a huge part of my food journey too. She's from Japan, so she's very, Japanese foods, and my YouTube channel is Japanese foods related. So it's all
lovely.
Moms
yes.
are definitely a big impact. So I've done a rainbow eating challenge with friends and family just for fun because we know variety is good and competition can really get me going. But can you share the science behind why colors are an important part of nutrition to talk about?
It's huge. Like I got turned on to colorful foods when I was in graduate school. So I started to study the phytonutrients. So most people, when they think of nutrition, they think of protein, carbohydrate, and fat. They might think of vitamins and minerals, but they don't often think of phytonutrients. Phytonutrients are the compounds that are in plants that sometimes have that pigment color that makes them look pretty. But they have a lot of benefits that go beyond the vitamin, mineral, and macronutrient benefits. So I was studying them in graduate school, like back in the 1990s. And at that time, phytonutrients were known as being antioxidants. And we didn't really have a lot of language, or we didn't really understand the science. And then when the 21st century science was coming through on nutrition, we started to realize that a lot of those compounds that are in plant foods that seem to just be hanging out there are actually very medicinal, and they're doing a lot of different things in the body. So I came into eating the rainbow because I started to realize that nutrition is like a pendulum. It swings, it goes from trend to trend. And when I would look at the literature, I would notice that the one thing that didn't falter was that of eating more fruits and vegetables, and overall just more plant foods. That there was a lot of data to suggest that eating these plant-based, or not even plant-based, they are plant foods, eating those foods would lead to reduced risk of chronic disease, and not only chronic diseases, but also help people to have better mood states. So I realized that I wanted to go with something tried and true, something that was scientific, but yet also fun and engaging, because, having a very healthy mom growing up was not such a great thing. And food and eating, at least as I was growing up, it wasn't a great thing because it was like, oh, I've got to think about these things. I have to read labels. And
Yeah.
I actually, in my teen years, I even had an eating disorder because I get really fixated on eating sugar and the things that I was told I couldn't have, I wanted. So
Mhm.
that's another message for moms out there. It's kind of like, having that
Cutting it all
balanced
off.
message is so key. Yes. So that's how I came into the rainbow, really. And working with Dr. Jeffrey Bland, I had worked with him for a number of years, and he's also the father of functional medicine. I started to realize that one of the big aspects of healing of food was coming through these phytonutrients. So eating the rainbow seemed like not only a fun message, but a scientifically sound one.
I love that. Can you quickly share the significance of each color?
Yeah, let's go through the colors.
Perfect.
So, in fact, if people want it, I do have a chart, and
Oh,
this
that's
is found
great.
in my whole detox book. And this is like my operating system. This is how I work. Like every color connects to an organ system, every organ system connects to the certain phytonutrients in foods. So, I look at color in a psychological way and also a physiological way. So, we'll start with red and go on up. But
Perfect.
red is I kind of see that there's a color code. Nature doesn't feel random to me. It feels very well orchestrated and intelligent. So I'll just give you my take on the color code. So my take is that red foods like apples and cherries and raspberries, tomatoes, strawberries, things of that nature, that they connect to the part of us that is engaged in the immune system and inflammatory response. Sometimes these foods can actually trigger an inflammatory response, like foods that are high in histamine, like strawberries. Sometimes we get rashes, hives from certain foods. So, just because it's a plant food doesn't mean it's always good for everybody. We definitely need a personalized approach. And sometimes children, as their immune system is in that process of formation in their early life, they seem to have more food sensitivities or intolerances. So we just need to be aware of that. So red is the color of urgency, emergency, inflammation. Sometimes we need a little bit of inflammation in the body in order to heal. So I don't see inflammation as necessarily a bad thing. And within those red colored foods, there are a number of compounds naturally occurring that would help to offset inflammation and bring our immune system back into balance.
So there's something to
I even
the
think of an
apple a
apple.
day. Yeah, I was going to say the apple a day keeps the doctor
Oh,
away.
isn't that funny that we both said?
So there's something to it, huh?
Yes, yes. And look at, well, and we have apple trees in our yard. And if I think about when they are ready and ripe, they're ready in the fall. And fall is when we seem to have more seasonal allergies, allergic rhinitis, seasonal changes and shifts. And so it's interesting because apples are such a great source of the different polyphenols in the skin, but also the quercetin in the white part.
Mm-hmm.
So apples are all around like a good, healthy, like a travel food, anytime that you feel more stress or potentially more inflammation.
I love that.
So
We
that's
just flew on
red.
an airplane and we had some apples. So I'm I'm taking this with me.
Good. Good. It's one of my favorite travel foods as well. And I'll eat the whole thing except for the stem, literally. Like
Yeah.
there's just so much goodness there. The second color is orange. So with orange, in fact, I just had, right before I jumped on this call, I just had a mango.
I love
Mangoes are in season. Oh, I do too. I love, love, love mango. And I'm so drawn to them. So I'm like honoring that. Like my body is telling me something. So mango, turmeric, carrots, oranges, persimmons, tangerines. I mean, you name it. There are a lot of different orange foods out there. Some
Mhm.
of them, if we think fruit wise, they're nice and round and they're sweet. Others of them, they're starchy, like maybe a sweet potato or yam, or although yams tend to be not as orange, but there are different
Nice.
carotenes in
Mhm.
these foods. Yeah. So orange is the color of reproductive health, hormones. And a number of these carotenoids in orange colored foods help us with things like endocrine balance. They connect to reproductive health. They connect to things like fertility. And there's a lot of science behind all of that, but I'll just keep it kind of light and just say that if we think of ovulation, healthy menstrual cycles, or if we even think of reducing ovarian decline, it seems like these orange foods could come into play. Also for sperm viability and sperm health. So whenever I think of orange, I think of it's warm, it's playful, it's the color that, when I think of a sunset, it can be emotional. And, again, it's interesting because orange was always the color I never wanted to wear. And so I always painted things that were orange. Like I like to paint.
Mhm.
And so I would always paint using orange and pink. And these again would connect into that system of more of our emotional selves, the reproductive aspect of our physical being.
I'm learning so much because orange, I just think of immune systems, right? Because you see like vitamin C or, all the
Uh-huh.
normal things that we think of, but there's so much more.
Well, and actually, vitamin C, if you look at a lot of the different foods and the high vitamin C containing foods, a number of them are actually red. Like one of the top ones is acerola cherry
Oh,
and
huh?
acerola cherry juice that's like top of the list, like very high. Then you have red bell pepper, which is also really high in vitamin C,
Mhm.
tomatoes. Yeah, so it's kind of a mixed bag. It's not like there's a clear cut like firm line around these colors because nature doesn't work in boxes.
Right.
Nature works in teams and diversity, but there is this pattern that you see with each of the colors a bit. Not to say that there can't be some crossover, but in general, what I see is like there's a pattern or a collection of studies that we see with certain red foods.
That's excellent. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. We have
So
red, we
yellow
have
is the
orange.
next
Okay.
color.
Yep.
Yeah. After orange is yellow. And when I think of yellow, well, first of all, I think of how so many people have too much yellow and like the wrong yellow, meaning highly processed or ultra processed foods
Yeah.
like cakes, cookies, breads, bagels, pastas, crackers, pizza crust. I mean, there's so much yellow. I kind of
Mhm.
think of yellow as the color of joy. So yellow is, we think of a smiley face yellow, we think of the sun yellow, it makes us happy. So there might be a psychological connection there that we might have with these high carbohydrate, highly processed, high sugar foods that may be imparting that sense of joy and optimism. But that's temporary, right? That's a quick spike in that sense of sugar and that euphoria that we might feel. And then if we're not careful, we come crashing down and then we start to have like low energy and we're even lower than we had before. So healthy yellow foods would be things like I think of prebiotic fibers, like a lot of the squashes,
Mhm.
a lot of the starches. I think of, but kind of the fermentable kind. I think of things like plantains, bananas. Plantains, bananas, and pineapple are some of the highest serotonin containing foods, which is kind of
Oh,
interesting. We don't know that eating those foods will lead to more happiness, but it's just kind of interesting. You see the banana, you see the
yeah,
plantain. It's like,
yeah.
and you can have these messages with kids too. I mean, kids, if you can make it fun and like talk about the colors. I've actually done this in a daycare before, my niece's daycare. She was 5, and I drew a picture of the body and I talked about how all these colors are helping certain parts of the body. And I walked them through and we talked about each one. I would ask them what their favorite color was. So talking with your kids about do you have all of these colors, right? So yellow is in great supply, but not in the kind we want. So other ones would be lemons,
Uh-huh.
ginger. Ginger is great for the gut. Ginger helps with establishing a healthier gut milieu, helps with motility and movement in the gut. So all around that keeps us moving and happy rather than stagnant and stuck, you
Yeah.
know, trying to get out
Yes.
of those ruts.
Yeah. And that's a good point. When we're talking about the colors, we're talking about natural plants and vegetables, right? Not processed things.
That's right. And one of those foods that tends to go through that spectrum is corn.
Mm.
We could look at like, okay, the whole natural form of corn, and then we might have popcorn, and
Mhm.
then we might have corn derived products. Like now all of a sudden we have starches that could be found as an ingredient in a food that comes from a yellow food. So what we're talking about here is exactly what you said. But it can also come in the form of like a spice, like ginger spice. Like there are some yellow spices, there are some orange spices, and definitely green. which is
Mhm.
the next color.
Perfect. All right, let's go to green then.
Yeah, green. So I love green. Green is my favorite color. I know that we need to love all of the colors, but there's just something about green. Green denotes healing, nature, natural. We live on a blue and green planet, so it's hard to almost not get green foods. Most people do get green. Like when I have been in audiences and I asked, like, okay, who had orange foods today? Some people raise their hand. Who had red? Some people. But when I get to green, most people are
Yeah.
raising their hand
I wonder,
because
yeah.
lettuces. Yeah, yeah, believe it or not, because even iceberg lettuce, the standard, even if you're eating more fast food, you can still get some green in there.
And I feel like there's an
And
emphasis on eat your greens, right? And so maybe people are more conscious of adding that in.
well, and if you just look at a produce section, like I love to go to my produce section at my grocery store and just like take pictures because it's so pretty. And if you just just scan it, you're going to find that most of those foods are going to be green. I
Yeah.
mean, there are some pockets. I mean, you've got avocados, you have basil, you have all the leafy greens, then you have the cruciferous vegetables, the Brussels sprouts, the broccoli. So I think nature intended that we get green because that's the one that we have the highest amount. Then there's green tea. You were talking
Mhm.
about your mother from Japan.
Mhm.
I mean, one of the most medicinal beverages that we know about is green tea. It's
Mhm.
green.
Yeah.
So having green in a number of different ways, green spices, green herbs, it's good. And it's good for the heart. So the
Mhm.
body system in general, when I think of green, I think of it's doing a number of different things. But for the most part, when I'm thinking of green, we get chlorophyll, which is a good antioxidant. It's good for binding things in the gut. It's good for just cleaning up our body systems, like just helping us as an antioxidant. Then
Mhm.
you have folates, you have magnesium, you have vitamin K1, phyloquinone. That's the plant form of vitamin K. So there are a couple forms of vitamin K. The plant form is in the leafy greens. Then you also get nitrates, healthy, naturally occurring nitrates in leafy greens that kind of look like the vascular system,
Mhm.
right? So when you eat those nitrates, they convert into the body ultimately to nitric oxide and help with healthy circulation of blood. So overall, we're helping the heart with all that folate to help reduce homocysteine, which is not good for the blood vessels. We're getting magnesium, which is kind of like plant. If we look at like our blood with hemoglobin,
Mhm.
we have iron. The plant almost has its own blood, if you will, that chlorophyll, and we get magnesium, right? So magnesium is essential and at the heart of chlorophyll. So one of the ways to get magnesium is to be thinking of like green vegetables. That's not the only way to get magnesium, but leafy greens, right? So helps with the heart on a number of different fronts.
Perfect. Is there any way, as we're talking through this, I'm wondering, should we be eating these a certain way? Or if someone puts them all in a smoothie, is that okay too?
Yeah. So if you put them in a smoothie and it turns brown because you just mixed all these colors together, that's okay. Just remember the starter color because that would be what you're aiming for is like in its full form. Like I just literally made that smoothie I was talking with you about, right? So I had mango, I put some fiber in there, I put some protein powder, I put some blueberries. I mean, by the time I was done with it, it was kind of like this off brown bluish
Right.
color. Maybe it doesn't look as appetizing as those individual vibrant colors. But just whenever you're counting your colors, that's what I like to say, count your colors rather than calories. You would be thinking of the starter color, not the final color. So that's just worthwhile to keep in mind.
Perfect. Perfect.
The
Okay.
last color is blue purple.
I'm
You know,
glad
and
you combined them because my kids and I were trying to figure out what's blue other than blueberry so we could think of purple.
right. That's why I combine them because there truly are no
Perfect.
real blue foods. I mean, I
Mhm.
guess if we get into spirulina, chlorella, certain types of aquatic microorganisms, which, aren't really, we could say that they're plant, but they're not very common.
Mhm.
So, and some of the sea plants, like, it might take on a little bit of a blue green, but truly there aren't a lot of blue foods. So I do combine it into blue purple because just like you said, your kids are very astute, right? Like blueberries are a bit blue, and in
Purple.
certain Yeah, they're kind of like this deeply hued. There's something in between. And then you have blackberries, and you have raisins, you have eggplant, figs, you have grapes. So this blue purple hue, and even you have purple cauliflower, when you steam it, it actually is the water becomes blue, not purple, but blue. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's really
Or like
pretty.
purple cabbage too, I guess.
Purple cabbage. That's right. That's right. So blue purple foods would connect to the brain. And this is the color. Now, this is really interesting because when I would ask kids, like, what's your favorite color? A lot of them love this purple color.
Oh.
Yes. And even adults, they love purple. It's either people really like green, blue, or purple. So kids, at least the ones that I've surveyed, seem to like that blue purple color.
Uh-huh.
So blue purple is the color of the brain. And the reason why I say that is because there have been studies on things like blueberries, Concord grape juice, these blue purple compounds, which seem to play a role in learning, memory, and even our mood state. So there seems to be a structural and even a functional role within the brain that some of these compounds, whether they're signaling from the gut or they're actually crossing the blood-brain barrier and going into certain parts of the brain that are responsible for learning, memory, and the mood. So when we think of blue purple, I usually tell kids, think of your brain. There was a survey done some years ago, and basically what they found was that blue purple was the color that most people fell short of and in. So it's the hard one to get, right? Because if you're at your produce section in the grocery store and you look around, like, where's all the blue purple? Grapes are over there. Maybe you'll find some purple carrots. Maybe you'll have a purple cauliflower if it's in season, but for the most part, there isn't a lot of purple. So you have to go over and beyond to really find them, get those blueberries, get those grapes, get the raisins, and choose purple varieties of food whenever it's a possibility. Like, for example, one of my favorite foods here in the Pacific Northwest. Where do you live?
I'm in California.
You're in California. Okay, so you might get this as well. We get here purple and green Brussels sprouts. They are gorgeous.
Oh, I think I've seen them, but on very rare occasion.
They are very rare. Purple is precious.
Yeah.
So when they come out, I always get them because it's like a twofer. It's like you're getting even more nutrient density. You're not even just getting those green compounds. Now you get the purple with the green. It's like the best of all. And when you cut into those Brussels sprouts, they're so pretty because you can actually see the purple within. So it's good stuff. You're getting that purple equals nutrients. That's not just useless pigment. That's actually like nutrition. So when you can choose that purple, choose it.
Purple's royalty too, right? So there's something to all these colors.
See, it's rare, it's precious, it's royalty.
Yeah. And my mom, again, her mom wisdom, she's like, berries are so good for you, so good for you. We have like this huge bag of frozen berries from Costco, right? Always in for the overnight oats or for smoothies or whatnot. And she's like, they're so good for you. But
yes,
she didn't explain the why. She just knows it is.
Sometimes we just know it's traditional wisdom. It's intuitive. But there is science. I mean, we could just do like a whole seminar, just a whole hour just on blue purple foods. There's a lot of science.
I love that. And I think I've heard you mention before that the inside and the outside color counts. Is that correct?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So like with an apple, the very basic one, right? The red on the outside, or if it's green, and then the white on the inside. Similar with, like, today I had a pear as a snack, and it was green on the outside, white on the inside. But like an orange carrot will be orange on the outside, orange on the inside. So it's just one color. So cucumber, green on the outside, green on the inside, one color. So yes, I have a description of how you actually track those colors. And I don't want to leave out black, brown, and white. So black I usually put with blue, purple, and black. And the reason why is because there are a lot of common foods and common compounds that are shared with the blue and the purple. So, I mean, think of a blackberry. It's more deeply hued, so it looks black, right? So it kind of has that connection to the color of that spectrum. Black sesame seeds, right? Black, so a lot of these different
chia seeds or
exactly, chia seeds. When I think of brown, there are healthy browns. Usually when I think of brown, I think of a lot of processed foods, similar to the yellow.
Yeah.
But brown has a place as well. Usually with brown foods, I think of fiber. Like those are the high fiber foods. Or I do lump them a bit in blue purple as well with black because they can be mood modulating. So here's what I mean by that. So cocoa and cacao and chocolate are all very mood modulating. And in fact, they have these individual foods all coming from the same food have compounds from the plant that help us to be less anxious. So often I think that when people crave foods, it's almost like their body knows that they can get this benefit. Like I'm a person that has always craved chocolate, even when I was in my mother's womb. Like my mom talked about how with her pregnancy with me, she was always craving chocolate. I think it was me. I was like, give me the chocolate. I just know I need it. So brown can be high fiber, like brown rice versus white rice, you know, the actual bran coating. That's how I think of it. I think of it as elimination of anxiety, elimination. You know, we know of the gut brain. So brown is kind of that divining rod between the two a bit. Then white. Now, white is an interesting one because I grew up with my mom saying the whiter the bread, the quicker you're dead. And white foods like white bread, white salt, white sugar were no good. So in my mind, it was always like white is bad, right? Like you don't want to eat white foods of any kind. But once you start to understand a bit more, you start to realize, well, wait a minute, what about coconut? Coconut milk. But, you know, coconut kind of has a dark side too, because people have created more coconut products that start to look more processed. So we do need to be careful that that white of refinement doesn't happen with certain white foods that may be healthy in their natural state, like sesame seeds, which are more like beigeish, right? Like white garlic.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, we can also take garlic along that spectrum and make it more processed into where it starts to lose its initial benefits from being the whole form of garlic, right? So just to keep cauliflower, you know, and all of these inventions now with cauliflower rice, I love all these hacks that are happening. Like people are getting smarter and saying, okay, I know white rice is probably not the best thing, so my kids won't eat anything other than that. So I'm going to try to do something like, you know, steamed cauliflower, mashing it up in a blender, making like cauliflower potatoes, so to speak. Right. And potatoes is another one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So lots of color options there. Did we leave out any colors?
I think that's it. And like you said, for the white, we can count, you know, if it's an apple or pear or whatever other fruit inside. Perfect. Right. I love that. So we want to give our kids a good foundation with food as well, right? I know we already kind of talked about a few of the things. What are some creative ways that parents can involve their kids in food choices or meal planning?
Actually involve them is one thing. You know, one of my favorite things to do with kids is making a pizza, like a rainbow pizza. Like you just bring the rainbow into everything. You wear the rainbow, you talk about the colors, you do rainbow bingo where throughout the day they have to like count their colors. You know, I think that the rainbow message speaks to kids, adults, and even older people. Like it is truly like the common denominator for families with eating, right? Making it fun. So having fun with food, because I think if we get too nutritional and we say, oh, you need red foods for your immune system, or, oh, you need yellow for those fibers, you know, I just think that's not sustainable. Like that might be interesting when the child gets older, but I think keep it fun, keep it playful. So like one of my favorites again is a rainbow pizza where you can do just a naked crust, like a gluten-free crust. I use a variety of things. Like you can just use olive oil as the base. You can use a pesto as the base. You can use tomato sauce as the base or tomato paste, and then start to layer with orange foods, yellow foods. You can incorporate mushrooms for brown, you know, however you decide to do it. And I've seen pizzas done in different ways where it's been like a square or a rectangle. Do the red, orange, yellow. You know, that's interesting. It's just that if you got the square of the red, then you're not getting the orange.
You have to go sideways, I guess.
Yeah, you get a long piece of pizza. But if you have it throughout, and you make it fun, and I just think kids love finger food. If I even recall like what it was like for me to be eating as a child, like you get messy, right? So it's like finger food, allowing, having one night a week where it's kind of like anything goes. It's like eat the meal with your fingers and just have fun. Because, there are so many times where we're told not to do things. So it's just nice to be all playful. One of the things that I also did, and I have it here, is I created, I was getting tired of writing books because I felt like, we need to actually get a little bit more playful and engaging at the dinner table. So I actually created a card deck where people, and it's of course rainbow-fied, so you can see the colors, right? And some families like to do prayer before they eat or grace. I grew up Catholic, so that was very much the practice. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's nice to have a place where everybody kind of comes down into that center moment of starting the meal and creating a ritual. I think that's important to teach children to have intention, to give thanks. Even if somebody is not religious, just simply giving thanks to the animals, giving thanks to the plants, giving thanks to nature, to the sky, to the rain, whatever it is. I think that's really beautiful. So I do a lot of workshops and different kinds of classes. So these cards came in handy because when people would pick a card, like if I just pick a card, here, why don't you pick a card?
Okay.
You tell me when to stop and I'll stop shuffling and I'll just pick any of these cards and see what you get.
Stop.
Okay. So you got a red card. You see how the rim is red? So this is a color back to the immune system, back to survival, safety, fight or flight. And this card was a little squirrel on it, and it says, I trust my eating instincts. So this is about trusting your body. Like, here's where I would have a conversation with the child or whoever picked it, or, sometimes they just get their own message from it and they say, oh, look how this animal is eating. And like, maybe we need to be more in tune with our own nature, like an animal is, right? Like, not be like in our head, but be in our bodies. How do we feel when we eat a certain food, right? So it kind of unleashes its own story and presents an eating message in a way that's not about nutrition. It's about nourishment.
Yeah. I love a number of things that you said in there. One is like, I love our family dinner time. And I know a lot of families don't have that ability to all sit down together. And that's very important to me. So that's one thing. And then being able to plan our meals for the week, like we do a weekend family meeting and whatever you want to call it, where we talk about what we're going to have to eat the week, because buy-in is huge, right? And kids can weigh in and say, we want to eat this, we want to eat that. And so I also don't get the, what are we eating today? What are we eating today? Go look at the calendar. So,
good point.
Yeah. I think this might tie in. I'd like to leave our moms with a quick action or challenge that people can perform today so that they can take action today and have a possible win, hopefully. Can you share your challenge for our mamas today?
Yeah, well, I'm leaving you with an Eat the Rainbow tracker that can be used by the whole family. And what I would recommend here is that you print it off. Maybe it stays like on a magnet on the refrigerator, or it stays at the dining room table or the kitchen table, wherever one eats, so that when you come together, you're with your child just checking off, like, what are the colors that we're having, so that every time you're eating, what you're aiming for is at the end of the day, you have all 7 colors. So on that one, I did include brown and white. So you'll see it. And what else I would also say to moms out there is, what I think is really, really important, if I can go back and talk with my younger self and just in terms of my relationship with food, listening to my body. It's actually really relevant that you picked that card, because I was asking a friend of mine who's a medical doctor. She has 2 daughters who are 10 and 12. And she was saying that, she just lets them go to birthday parties and partake. But she does educate them about gluten and dairy and some of the things that might go awry for them in terms of eating socially and then taking that in and then getting a headache or tummy ache. So what I think is really important for kids is to observe how powerful food impacts the body. Like, what are some of those things for the child? For some kids, it's going to be gut issues. Like, okay, now they're going to be constipated. For other kids, they might get a headache or they might get tired. To really make the link between food and the body. Because when they get older, then they're going to have that understanding of like, okay, I'm not feeling well. I have irritable bowel syndrome. Let me go back to what I learned when I was a child about how food impacted the feelings in my body. What was I feeling after I ate that food? Right? Especially within that first 4 to 6 hours, but even up to like 24 hours. So I love that she really keyed into that with her daughters, because one of her daughters would say like, "Oh, I have a headache." And it would be like the next day. And she's like, "Well, what did you eat yesterday at that party?" Right? You start to make that connection for kids so that it's not a foreign concept to be thinking that food is medicine. No, food is directly related to how you feel and how your body is performing. And for some kids, it's going to be about their skin. They want their skin to be healthy. They don't want acne when they're in high school. I know that was for me a big thing. Then you have other kids who are into sports, right? And they want to perform better. Okay, so certain proteins are going to be really important for you. So again, making that connection to food, body, whether performance, outcome, emotional state, whatever it is, I think that that is really important. If parents can do that homework early on with kids, their lives as adults, they will go to that as a default, hopefully.
I love that you mentioned that because there are so many benefits that we don't think of, right? There are just unexpected things like appearance that just get impacted by our food. It impacts everything. So I love that.
Yes. Yeah, so many people will ask me oh, your skin. I said, if you only knew my skin when I was a teenager, I was very concerned about my skin. And I think about so many girls, like they're very self-conscious. And even if they have like maybe one pimple and it's not a big deal, and you look at it later, like that was not a big deal. It just becomes magnified, right?
Absolutely.
But if you knew that you're eating all the sugar led to you like needing to get that out of the body, and the skin might be just the organ to do that for you. So, more body love, more loving our bodies, trusting our bodies, seeing the connection between our bodies and nature, that we're not separate from nature. It's so incredibly important, especially in this day and age. And one last message, I really want to get this out, Amy, is looking at what's in our environment and how to reduce toxins too. Now, it's not as a colorful and bright and vital as a message as eating the rainbow, but how can we move our kids more away from plastic? Like getting away from those plastic water bottles, plastic bottles of anything, any kind of juice, that's just so disruptive to their endocrine system, to their hormones. And so as they go from childhood into puberty, we need to optimize like that. All things are moving in their optimal direction. Plastic and all of these other things just get in the way. So the containers of food and what we cook in would be as important as what we're actually putting in those containers or cooking. So parents, that's in your court. Be thinking about your cookware. Stay away from the Teflon, stay away from the plastic. These things are endocrine disruptors and get included into the food or the beverage in the consumption. So just really be conscientious about that if you can.
That's such a good reminder, because plastic really is everywhere. It's the Tupperware or the plastic forks and knives, whatever it is. And then cookware, like you mentioned. Thank you so much for that reminder. And I think you already said one last thing, but is there anything else you would like to share with our mamas? And where can people connect with you further?
Okay, one last thing for the mamas is, so I have 3 principles. We covered 2 of them: color, creativity, like with the pizza. And then the third one, which I did not talk about, but I just want to make sure everybody's aware of it: variety. I know like what you said, how you make your meals from the start of the week for the whole week, and then everybody knows what you're having. I think it's really important to have diversity, however we do it, like week to week diversity, day to day diversity. I think what happens with families is they kind of get in these ruts where they make the same recipes over and over again. I mean, it's been estimated that Americans make something on the order of 5 to 7 recipes, and that's it. Like we don't extend beyond our realm and like just try a new food. Or so like even if you have your kids like, hey, go into like your grocery shopping together, just have them pick out a fruit or a vegetable that they don't know and that they haven't had. Like I just bought a squash, and I hadn't had this kind of squash before, like not recently. So getting the diversity is so good for the gut. We create a more diverse gut microbiome, which actually confers greater benefit for things like the immune system and so many other things. So those are my three principles. Again, color, which we talked a lot about, creativity, making food fun, and then variety. Super important.
I love that. We get like a produce box delivered sometimes, and sometimes you don't know what you're getting, right? So
Yeah,
that's
that's
really
so
fun.
fun. That's creative
Yeah,
too. And
yeah,
very, yeah, you get the diversity with that.
yeah. And travel is really fun because then you get to try different foods that you might not get in your side of the world. So
That's right.
love that. Perfect. Where can people find you to connect with you further?
My website, so deannaminich.com. So DeannaMinich.com. And I would say for the parents, your place on this on the website, as I would say, go to where it says resources, and then there are a bunch of downloads. Like I'm gifting all of your summit viewers with this Eat the Rainbow checklist for kids, but I have a bunch of other things that are on my website that are you can just download, like a food and mood tracker. I have like a cooking and preparation guide. I just have different things that I like to bring that to the forefront because sometimes I get a lot of questions and then I'm like, you know what? It just makes sense for me to create something and then just have people download that.
I love that. I've looked at the printable. It's super cute, easy for kids to have fun with and adults alike. And it has the foods for different colors. I love it. So go check that out, everyone. The links will be in the page. And thank you again, Dr. Deanna, for sharing such valuable information with us. And everyone, be sure to come back for more amazing summit speakers.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you.